There's nothing like being up in the mountains outside LA with no one else around, except for these flies. It's just so peaceful up here. So we've had a chance to try this car out now on Angel's Crest Highway, which is a mecca for any sports car enthusiast that lives around this area, and it's just fantastic on these roads. The transmission is the only place where you can improve, but the engine, the steering, the handling, the balance is just fantastic. What a joy. The two best things about this car are up here, the styling and this engine. How can you beat the front end of an Aston Martin? They really do make the most beautiful cars in the world. The great styling continues around the back. Really just, there isn't an angle that this car doesn't look spectacular from. The interior of this Aston is incredible as well. This steering wheel with the flat sides that's borrowed from the 177 sports car. This beautiful stitching on the seats. Red leather. This is it, isn't it? Big 6-liter V12 mounted in the front, rear-wheel drive. Like the Grand Touring cars of old. This is a throwback and it's a dying breed. They're replacing all of these engines eventually with turbos, smaller displacement. If you really are nostalgic, this is the one to get. The very first thing I'm noticing about this Aston up in these mountains and these curves is the steering feel. Really, really direct, precise. You know, it's as good as it gets as far as steering feel. And this steering wheel design with the flat sides, it's one of the most pleasing wheels in your hand that I've experienced. The transmission, for example, is an automatic gearbox. It's not a dual clutch. And you can tell. We've driven other automatics that are even better at hiding the fact that they're an automatic. This one shows its true colors. When you lift off, it starts to coast. You can tell that torque converter's there. It automatically upshifts from first to second. There's some things that you really have an issue with, but when it makes sounds like that, it doesn't matter. This thing's proper fast. Again, not that much torque. It's all high in the rev band, so you want to rev this engine out to get the most out of it. That's what these turbo engines are going to change. You'll get more torque, but you lose the feel you get of this engine that wants to rev and rev and rev. In this car, it's just lovely. No drama whatsoever. Nice system. I would wish for a little more wheel spin, but that's just me. I can't think of very many cars that are going to have the same feeling you get driving this one. The combination of this beautiful interior, knowing how beautiful the outside of this car is, the glorious sound of that V12, you know, you just have to wonder if it doesn't get any better than this. There's definitely other cars that you can get at this price point. We're talking about $300,000 here that do things better than this car does. What you don't get is the soul of this car. Hand built. It looks incredible. Snarling V12 in the front. These things end up making a car that's better than the sum of its parts. You know, this interior is handcrafted. All of these materials are beautifully chosen. You can see the hand stitching. It's not quite perfect. You can see the variations in it. If we were in a Porsche, these stitches would be perfectly straight, very Teutonic. If we were in a Ferrari, you may get some of that same soul, but Ferraris these days are almost too good. This car has its quirks, and that makes it special. 6-liter V12, 568 horsepower, and just listen to the sound it makes. Amazing. I can't imagine how wonderful this car would be with a manual gearbox. It's very analog, everything this car does. It doesn't have a ton of technology interfering with everything. And so I think it would be perfectly suited to a manual. It's a transaxle, but the transmission actually sits in the back of this car for weight distribution. And you'd think that a car that goes to that length to preserve front and rear weight balance, they wouldn't have gone with the automatic transmission. Even though it's an 8-speed automatic transmission, even though it can get you the best possible mileage you can get out of this engine and let the car go out to 201 miles an hour, we just don't feel like this transmission fits the soul of this car. The Bang & Olufsen stereo system is amazing. Had the chance to check it out a little bit. I paired my phone and played some of my favorite tracks, and I've always been a fan of Bang & Olufsen. It fits this car very well. and it's one of the best sounding factory stereo systems I've heard. A Grand Tourer like this is meant to gobble up the miles. In this car, you don't get fatigued. The driving position is extremely comfortable. Armrest is in the right place. The steering wheel is adjustable to right where you need it. You can just see yourself gobbling up mile after mile in this car and looking really good doing it. The ride quality of this Aston is pretty impressive given how well this car handles. You've got two modes with the damping here. You've got a sport and a normal mode. The normal mode soaks up the bumps just great. It's got a long wheelbase, so it's really planted as it goes down the road. Again, just Grand Tourer all the way. This 8-speed gearbox, not only does it give you more efficiency, but the 8-speed is what lets this car go to 201 miles an hour. When it first came out, these cars just had a 6-speed and it was limited to about 178, 180, somewhere in that range. So what do I think about this 2016 Aston Martin Vanquish? Well, I'm in love with it. Just look at this car. It's beautiful. There's cars out there that'll handle better, that have more technology, but having a big 6-liter V12 screaming in the front of a car that looks like this and handles the road the way this one does, it just doesn't get any better.